it's been a big thing this year, bridging, connecting sovereign networks, but it's also the most dangerous thing to do, right? And highly vulnerable, as we've seen with all these hacks throughout the year. So can you maybe explain also for those that might hear from Axelar for the first time, how is Axelar designed? Like, what is the architecture like, and what makes it less vulnerable to have an exploit one day, compared to all the things that we've seen like Ronin and Wormhole and Nomad, which all got exploited this year?
Yeah. So I think the security at the end of the day comes down to three different layers, right? I think the layer one is having like the right design behind and the right fundamentals, right? And so based on that, kind of Axelar is based on proof of stake technology, which is a decentralized technology that we operate in, right, to run the blockchains that we're using today. And so Axelar has the same fundamentals in it. It's a proof of stake protocol. It's decentralized. It's permissionless. People can join and become validators. People can send transactions to it. Everything is open source, so you can take a look at the code. We can verify it, and you can inspect it, right? So starting with the decentralized design that can scale, I think is number one, priority. And I think a lot of the bridging and a lot of the hacks that you've seen in the space, they started with just a centralized solution, which is maybe a very small set of validators and nodes that are kind of co-signing messages, and that's about it. So that's number one, right? From there, it's a question of engineering practices that have to be put in place to actually build secure protocols, right? And that comes out to everything from audits, right? So we've done like over 27 audits on the network across different layers of the stack, everything from smart contracts being audited multiple times to the back end of the network, having rigorous tests, end-to-end tests, kind of unit tests, and so on and so forth. So having things like bug bounty, right? So we run kind of 2.2 million bug bounty on Immunify. People can go play with it. If they find a vulnerability, they can go and they can report it and get paid for it. So that's the engineering aspect of it, right? And then the third thing that what I call is kind of application-specific add-ons for security, right? So as an example, Axelar implements things like rate limits, right? So meaning that, even if we process a certain amount of value transfer through the network, there's probably no situation where all of that value needs to be, transferred in an hour, right, or 2 hours. So what is the typical volume of the network, right? And kind of how can you make sure that you don't on the network layer you don't process more than that? And so rate limits come, pretty handy in this, and I think everybody should be implementing them. And same thing on the application layer when there are other applications that are being built. So thinking about, what are my fallback mechanisms? What are rate limits? What are additional security add-ons I can do on top of the network specific to my application, right? Is I think something, very important, and we have, an array of those. So yeah, I think that's really comes down to those three layers. We actually have a blog on our website. If you go to axel.network /blog on the security that outlines all the different processes and mechanics that we've been working through.
Yeah, and here's a question in that context from Basil, who is low-key scared for his AXL USDC. And it has now also find more traction, obviously, with the integration on Osmosis, right? You guys also won the governance voting there. But I think that's really what, a lot of people are really scared right now. It's like, how confident can I really be in the security of it? But yeah. So yeah. I don't know if there's like more stuff you could address to that. I think also, and I got this question also through Twitter. Somebody was also asking whether there's any sort of like central point of failure that, where a lot of funds are sitting, or any sort of admin keys or anything that is very interesting for hackers to keep an eye on and potentially try to exploit.
Yeah, I mean, look, like with any protocol, you have, kind of attack surfaces, right? And so I think to me, kind of when thinking about those things, you try and understand like, what is the attack surface? How do I make it as small as possible? And how do I make it as bulletproof as possible, right? Even within kind of a Cosmos and IBC, I think, we've seen, vulnerabilities that had to be patched, right? So no protocol is, immune to those things, but things like rate limits really help, I think, in a lot of the use cases, right? So the ability to limit, the exposure to the worst case, and the ability to continue to decentralize the network. Because at the very end of it, I think the security comes from kind of diverse software deployments at the very core of it, right? So whenever we say decentralized, why decentralized, right? Like, it's not just a sort of philosophical argument for me. It actually has a very practical impact that the more decentralized, the network of the protocols are, the more diverse the software deployment environments are. Everybody's taking their own security precautions, and you get security at the very core of these networks, right? So that's been at the core of a lot of the work that we're doing, and we're going to continue doing it.
Yeah.